Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi. Zevachim Kofei. We begin 6 lines off the top of the Amud. Another question in the name of Rabbi Elazar regarding the Parim Hanisrafim and the Seirim Hanisrafim. Right, so these karbanos whose dam is applied internally on the mizbeach in the heichal, etc., and then the actual behema, the actual par, the cow, or the so'ir, the goat, is to be taken outside, transported outside Yerushalayim to the Beis Hadasha, in that special burning area. And the halacha is, as we learned yesterday, the fellow who actually handles this exportation and or the individuals involved in getting it all burnt up, they are metame begodim. There's a special tumah applicable to them. They become tamei, and it extends to their clothing. Now, as we learned yesterday, the tumah happens when they leave. Okay, according to Tanakama, the one who's actually transporting it at that boundary point, when he leaves the area, when he leaves the premises of the Azora, as soon as he takes the par v'soyer outside, the tumah gets activated. Now comes an interesting question. Boy, Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar has a question. Parim us'irim hanisrafim. Okay, these karbanos, sheyatzu, that had left the premises. Okay, they were taken out. V'chazru, then returned back inside. Mao, what's the status of those people carrying the karban? Shall we say, well, too late, too bad. Once you left with the karban, even though you brought it back, your begadim become tummy. It doesn't get cancelled. Or shall we say, once the behemoth is now back inside, it sort of cancels the whole process. It's as though you never left, because after all, it's back inside, right? And came back in. What's the status of these individuals and their begadim? Shall we say, look, once they went out with the parim, they become tamei. Or shall we say, even the hadar, once they're back inside hadar, once they came back inside, they're back. Okay, so turn back the clock. Let me try to resolve this based on the Mishnah. Okay, so we learn in the Mishnah, they were carrying the karbanos using poles, and we have people in the front, the lead, people. We have people in the back. As soon as the lead individuals exit the wall of the Azar, but the ones in the back have not yet left. The lead fellows that left the Azara become tamei, but not the ones behind. The ones behind do not have tumas begadim until they leave as well. The question is, why are the ones behind spared of tumas begadim? Look, the focal point is the par itself. Right? When the par leaves the area, the carriers become tamei. Now, in this case, did the par leave? Of course. Right? The lead people in the front had carried out the par. It's just that the ones in the back are still lingering and still, inside the wall. So what? Their begadim should become tamei as well. Although they're left behind for the time being, but the event already occurred. The carriage occurred. So it's similar to having left and come back. Similar idea. Because the leaving took place, the exiting took place. Just they happen to be stuck behind. If you're going to tell me, if you're going to suggest that regarding your question posed a minute ago, that if you take it out and come back in, once and they leave, right? So once the karban is taken out, even if it's returned back, the carriers become tummy, they stay tummy, they don't lose their tumah. Likewise, the same should happen here regarding the fellows in the rear. Those individuals that are still inside, right, because they're clutching the backside of the poles, Nami l'tami, they should become tummy as well. Because the event occurred, it's already outside, they happen to be inside. It's like he went out and came back in, to a certain extent. Amar Ravina, no, how could you even suggest? Your premise is an error. These individuals that are still behind, that never left, why would you say they're tummy? V'tizbra, how can you suggest as such? Of course you have to first leave. There's no question you have to first leave to trigger that tumah. How about, we require. The pasuk says, come back in, right? V'achar yavel hamachna. Pasuk says, when they leave with the par, right, they become tummy, then you can come back inside. Which means that you're outside. Veleka, but if you never left, then Veleka, this is not really applicable to you. Meaning, what Ravina is telling us is the tumah of Tumas Begadim is contingent upon leaving. Of course, before you leave, there's nothing to talk about. So you can't really make any correlation to this case. We spoke about a fellow who took it out and came back in. But you're attempting to provide clarity from a case where he never left. Says the Gemara, you're right. Ella Rabbi Lazar hechi boila. Let's skip this whole sort of misconception in Rabbi Lazar's question. Of course, in the event that we described, that they transported the par outside, and then came back in. Of course, they don't become toher. And once the tumah is applied, it's a done deal. Likewise, there's no question that if a fellow never left to begin with, even if he's participating in the carrying process, but he's still inside, of course he's not. So what then was the question? El Rabbi Lazar, hechi boila. What was this question to begin with? It's like this. We're talking that the par was taken out and then returned back inside. But you have an individual who's standing on the outside holding onto the par with a pole. So picture it like this. The par was taken out and then back inside. Comes along an individual to help it be taken out again. So he's standing on the exterior, on the outside, sort of reaching over with a pole, holding the par which is still back inside. So he's really outside in fulfillment of the pasuk v'achar yavel hamachna, which in the case that he's already outside. But in contrast to the standard halacha, where we learn that the tumah gets activated when the par is taken, the par is back inside. But the thing is, the par is already outside. It's already exported material, even though it's currently back inside. But it's exported material. Perhaps it can activate tumah on the fellow standing on the exterior, holding on to it. Kigoyin de nekitila, they're holding on to the par bekulsi with these poles. In this case, you can consider both options. Shall we say they're tamei, because they're handling from the outside, they're handling a par which is already exported material, or you can say no. Once the par was returned to the interior, the tumah is no longer going to be generated until it's taken out. Interesting shayla. Tana Rabbanan. Okay, we speak about how this carrying process affects the carriers and their begadim. Here comes a brayso which discusses that aspect, and also the fact that these animals will actually transmit tumah to anything that touches them, like food and drink. Right? There's a tumah that's self-generated by these animals to food and drink that it touches. So although we don't treat it like a heavy generator of tumah, if a person merely touches these animals, it doesn't become tummy. It's not like an avha tumah that, is matami a person or a utensil. Regarding a person, he only contracts tumah through a very specific process, through carrying it, handling it, burning it, right? Otherwise, just touching the animal doesn't make you tummy. But if the animal touches food, then the food becomes tummy, as we're going to see. Tana Rabbanan. Parim. So these these cows, these parim and these seirim, right, that are meant to be burnt. Upara, para here is the para aduma, which likewise is going to be burnt outside Yerushalayim. V'soira mishtaleach, that's the goat that's sent out to the desert on Yom Kippur. So all those involved in this process, hamashaleach, the one that carries out the walks out the soir to the midbar, v'asorfan, those that are involved in burning these animals, v'amitzian, and transporting these animals outside. Mitame begadim, right? So the fellow who travels out with the soir, who burns, who carries it, mitame begadim, his begadim become tamei. So he becomes tamei and extends to his begadim. V'hei natzmam. But ironically speaking, these animals themselves, ein mitame begadim. So let's say a garment comes into contact with any of these beings, they don't become tamei. Okay, so it's only a very specific type of tumah. The individual who handles them, he becomes tamei and his begadim as well. Okay, so they don't have the ability to mutabi begadim. Avol metam and oichel mashkin. However, we have an exception. Food and drink do become infected by touching these things. They become tamei. Divrei Rameir. That's Rameir's sheet. So whether it's the dead, parim and then the seirim, or even alive, soira mishtalech, which is an unusual thing that a live animal should transmit tumah. Rameir says they all transmit tumah in a lighter form to food and drink, as we're going to see soon. V'chachamim, they disagree somewhat. The dead animals, yes, but a live animal, that's totally inconsistent with the accepted norms, with the rules of tumah. We never find that a live animal transmits tumah. This is no different. Okay, so to say that the para nisraf, the soir nisraf, and paraduma are self-generators of tumah with respect to food and drink, yes, but not a live animal. It's a phenomenon unfound anywhere. So that certainly will not happen here. Para, that's the paraduma. Uparim, that's the param nisraf. We agree. Any food and drink that comes into contact with these animals becomes tamei. But soira mishtaleach, the live goat, transported out to the desert on Yom Kippur, einay metame. That's not going to transmit tumah to food and drink. You know why? He's a living animal. We never find out a living animal can transmit tumah to food and drink. Now, let's try to understand Rameir. Rameir is in line with the Brisa, the Talmud, the Bishmael. The pasuk speaks about a general halacha that food can become tamei, provided that it gets rinsed first, it gets washed, it's moisturized. It's called hechsher l'kabel tumah, right? That sort of opens the door for contracting tumah. But interestingly, the pasuk, rather than making reference to plain food, speaks about seeds. Interesting, right? I'll call zera zeirua. So what's the significance of seeds, right? Seeds which get wet, the pasuk says they can become tamei, right? Provided A, they got wet, and B, they touch something which transmits tumah to them. They have to get the tumah from elsewhere. They can't self-generate tumah, right? So we learn, compare everything to seeds. Ma'azraim, what's unique about seeds? Shein soifin li tamei tumah chamura. A seed can never acquire a severe level of tumah. In this case, it means like avhat tumah, like a nevela, a carcass, a dead lizard, a mace, aviyavois tumah. Seeds can never get to that point. At most, it can get a lower level of tumah. So if a nevela touches a seed, the seed gets a tumah, but it's a limited, it's a rishon the tumah. Right, sort of a sub level. And then it can transmit tumah to another food, etc. So only seeds which don't have the ability to rise to the highest level of severe tumah, and that's why you have all these conditions. before it becomes tummy. First of all, it has to get moisture right, shrichim hechsher, and it has to come into contact with another source of tumah. It's not a self-generator. It's not a source of tumah on its own. Again, that's because it's seeds and has limited capacity for tumah. And likewise, other materials that share similar characteristics as seeds, which can't acquire a high level of tumah, likewise has to follow the same system. You have to get it moisturized and come into contact with a source of tumah, which it will acquire. As opposed to an item, if you find a material that can get to a very high level of tumah, for instance, Yatzis as opposed to Nivlas Oiftar, a kosher bird that died, an avail of Oiftar. The fact is, it acquires a very high level of tumah. In fact, it's a self-generator of tumah. It's its own source of tumah. The halach is, if one touches a Nivlas Oiftar, it doesn't really make him tamei, but if he eats it, there's a unique halacha here. If a person eats it while he's swallowing the available iftar, he and his begadim become tummy. Evidently, the nivlas iftar has greater capacity. It could generate a very high level of tumah, and therefore it doesn't have to follow those rules. It doesn't need to get washed. It doesn't need to touch other tumahs to become tummy. It's a self-generator of tumah. Ve'ein tzricha hechsher. Doesn't have to be enabled. Doesn't have to get wet. And even if it never touched a source of tumah, it's its own generator of tumah. Likewise, says Rameir, in our discussion regarding the parim, the paraduma, and everything, since, as we learned, they have the ability to generate tumah, to whom? To the individuals involved in processing them, carrying them, burning them, which are tumah chamura, time of the person and his begadim. So they're self-generators. They don't need the hechsher system. They don't have to follow the conventional system, which typically enables material to become tummy, hechsher and touching other sources of tumah. And likewise, by extension, says Rameir, even a live animal, you don't have to fit the rules. You don't have to follow the conventional track. Yeah, typically an animal, while he's alive, is not metami, but here it's different. These have greater capacity. These are seifel l'tamei tumah chamura. So A, they don't have to get washed. B, they're self-sources of tumah. They don't have to get their tumah from elsewhere. And C, even a soir la'azazel, while he's alive, if he touches food, becomes tumah. That's Rameir's sheet. Okay, so according to Rameir, it's all good and well. Ela l'Rabbanan. But the Rabbanan who say that the para, duma, etc., are metami food and drink. Okay. But not the live animal. No, because live animals are never metame. Well, I don't understand. We're not talking about conventional materials. Yeah, surely, typically, live is not metame, but here it's different. They're metame to machamur. They have greater capacity, which even the Rabbanan agree applies in this case. The fact is that they agree that the paraduma will be metame food upon contact. So apparently it is a self-generator of tumah. El Rabban Islu, the Tanoi Bishmol, if they concur with the Brisa, that something which can eventually metame tumah chamura already currently has the power to be metame a light or tumah with respect to touching food and be metame it. So then apply it to all cases. Afilu Saram Shtelech, even the live animal, Saram Shtelech should have a tumah kala now. Lastly, if they don't concur with Rabbi Shmuel's fundamental, afilu para or para minalon. So then how did I know that the paraduma or the para misrafim will transmit tumah to food and drink? Perhaps it only applies to the person and his clothing while he's handling it. Who says there's a plain, simple transmission of tumah upon contact to food? So it's either all or nothing. How could you adopt it partially and ignore the other part? Says the Gemara. I'll tell you. I'll explain to you why where the Chachamim are coming from. They hold that although the these parim and these things are different than your conventional food and drink. These are things that can generate tumah. But Rishmo never meant to say they totally bust the guidelines. Sure, they're exceptional. Sure, they're different. You know how they're different? In one thing. Typically, for something, let's say food, for it to be problematic, for it to generate tumah, to transmit tumah to something that it touches, food is not naturally tummy. It has to import its tumah from elsewhere. It has to touch something, get the tumah, and transmit it further. That is not required by these parim. They are self-generators, self-made tumahs. Okay. So in that sense, they're different. So if they touch food and drink, they become tummy. But it's not to say that we bust the rules. Right? So live animal, which is never mitame, no different here. Don't take it that far. Rameir took it even further. He says, well, we bust the rules. There are items that merely import and then transmit. There are self-generators. Self-generators, different system. They don't have to conform to the standard rules, even a live animal, right? No, Rabbanan don't take it that far. One thing we agree, they don't have to derive that tumah from elsewhere. They self-generate it. But again, you have to sort of fit the guidelines. You have to follow the norms. A live animal is not matame, period. Okay, that's the point. KosherT ube, Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael, he explained, Amar Rav in Eretz Yisrael, they explained as follows. The Chachamim learned that Talmud Bishmo wasn't taking it that far. All he meant to say is that typically, food has to receive tumah in order to transmit it. It's not a self-generator, as opposed to these are self-generators. But again, it has to fit the guidelines. Live animals, not matam. Okay? So let's just recap. Those who are handling the parim, etc., they become tamei, the clothing become tamei. But what about just plain simple tumah upon contact? A piece of food touched the par, does it become tamei? The answer is yes. Because if they're self-generating tumah, is a very severe tumah, certainly they also exhibit a plain standard tumah, which will affect any food that touches them. According to Rameir, we take it a step further. Even the live Sarah Mishalech has that ability too. By Rabbi Lezer, here comes an interesting question. Again, the name of Rabbi Lezer. Parim usiron esrafim. Mau shitamu oichlan umashkim befnim kibachutz. So, let's say they haven't yet been transported. They have not yet been exported. So the tumah chamura, again, which means the more severe tumah that impacts the people that are involved, hasn't yet been activated. It only happens when it's taken out. So it's still inside. So the par is inside, and now food touches it. What's the status of that food? So the par has potential to generate a very severe tumah, but hold it in a minute when it's taken out. It's not yet there. On the other hand, you can say, well, it doesn't matter if this is a generator of tumah. So even now, already in this early stage, while it's still inside, before it's already matame, food and drink. Shall we say mechusar yitzia? The fact that it was not yet exported, it's still missing a component in the development of its tumah. It's not yet activated. Or maybe not. Meaning to say that it's already a source of tumah, and it affects the food that it touches. Basar, the bayah, the pashta, after it was posed, he resolved, he says, it's too early in the game. If it wasn't taken out yet, it's still lacking, it's still missing. The tumah has not yet been fully developed. There's no issue at this point. I have a new question. So we said, according to Rav Meir, we bust the rules. Something which has the ability to matame tumah chamura is matame even in ways that are not conventional, even a live animal. And the Gemara is assuming that, let's say, a nevela va'if tahar, which again is another example of something which is matame tumah chamura because it makes you very tummy when you eat it, right? While you're swallowing it. And likewise, even before you eat it, the item itself can generate tumah to food that it touches. But typically, when food transmits tumah needs to have a shear of a kibetza. That's the halacha. An egg, a volume of an egg. On the other hand, the tumah chamura that a nivelized oif tahor generates upon swallowing it relates to even a smaller amount, a kazayas, which is the shear of achila, right? It's not an interesting question. So we say nivelized oif tahor is metame while you swallow it. If you swallow kazayas, metame tumah chamura. But even before you swallow it, it's a source of tumah and can affect food and drink that it touches. How much nevela do you need to generate tumah? How much? Do you say, well, it has to be a kibetza, which is the typical volume required for food to transmit tumah to other food? Or do we say, no, this is different? Because the tumah chamura, which will eventually be generated by this nivelas iftar, is by way of kazayas upon eating. So perhaps even before you eat it. The nevela is matami tumah kala, when it touches food and drink. Also, a sheer kazayas is all that's needed. So again, we're busting the rules. According to our mayor, perhaps we could bust the rules. We don't have to conform to standard procedure. Just as Rameir says, a live animal can be matame, tumah kala, because eventually it's matame tumah chamura. So perhaps a kazayas of the nevela could affect food and drink. Because the kazayas of the nevela will eventually be matame tumah chamura when the person eats it. Two sides of the same coin, right? Nivlas oiftar Rameir, ma'oshi tame kazayas. If it touches food, and you only have a kazayas of the nevela, can it generate tumah to that food or not? Well, the machsalara, if it's still sitting on the ground, right? There's no question that it can't, because who says it's going to be eaten? Who says it's going to get to the point of generating a severe tumah upon eating? Who says he's eating it? The nogad b'pumei, on the other hand, if he's already in his mouth, already being eaten, there's no question on the other hand that, of course, it's matama tumah kal even with the kazayas, because it's already in the process of being eaten. It's already sort of in the process of tumah chamura. The question will be somewhere in the middle. Not going to be he's holding it in his hands. Close to his mouth, but it's in his hand, right? It's lacking delivery, meaning it's not yet in his mouth. It's considered lacking in its development component. So it's not yet considered something which is matame tumah chamura, and therefore will not be matame, food or drink, upon contact, if it's only a kazayas. Or shall we say that no, it's it has that potential, right? If you should choose to eat it, it's matame tumah chamura. So it already has that power now. It sounds from Rashi that if it's sitting on the floor, it's not going to be matame at all, let alone with a kazayas. It's not matame at all because it's not yet on the track of tumah chamura. Okay. However it is, the question relates to the fellow who's holding it in his hand, and the question is, does it have the koyach to be matame tumah kala? Because it can potentially be matame tumah chamura when and if he decides to eat it. Okay, so the Gemara responds by saying no. Mechusa kreva, yes, mechusa kreva, lavke mechusa masadami. The fact that it's lacking kreva, wasn't yet brought closer, meaning it wasn't put into his mouth, is not considered lacking in its development. And it's matame. Not only is it matame, it's matame food and drink, even though it's only a kazayas, which is the corresponding amount to tumah chamura, which it has the ability to generate. Okay? Now comes a kash. So we're saying that according to Rameir, even a kazayas of a nivlas iftar is matame. A tumah kala is matame food and drink upon contact, really? Here's a kasha. It's a Mishnah regarding a nivlas iftar shloisha dvarim. There were 13 principles, 13 halachas, nemru, which were applied to this very item, benivlas iftar. We're not going to go through all 13, just a couple. V'ze'echad mehem, and this is one of those 13. Tzricha machshava. You have to decide. that you're going to eat it. Okay, Rashi explains, let's say there is food around that's tamei, but you need a kibetza of food to transmit tumah. You have, kibetza minus a little bit, and you have a little of this material, the nivla seif Torah, that you want to sort of combine it with that food to transmit tumah to something else. So you have to first determine that this nevela is going to be eaten, which renders it a food item. Of course, you don't have to rinse it with water, you don't have to moisturize it, as we said before, since it has a potential for a serious type of tumah, it doesn't require preparation. Okay, so this nivla seif Torah is metam tumas eichlin, which means to say that it's considered like tamei food, and if it touches other food, it makes that food tamei, provided, how much do you have? How much volume? Kibetza. So, why do you need a kibetza? Because ice is enough. Now we're talking that he's holding it in his hand. Rashi explains. Because we said you have to have machshava, you have to decide. Now, if it's in his mouth already, you don't have to have machshava, he's eating it, right? So it must be that it's in his hands. So here we have a case of a nivla seif Torah in your hands, which according to what we said before, already exhibits tumah, even by merely a kazayas. And here we say, no, you need a kibetza to generate tumah. We don't say, well, we bust the norm, we bust the rules. Because it has the ability for higher tumah, then even a kazayas has that ability to. No. At this point, you want to be metam tumas eichlin. Food that touches this nevel should become tamei. You need the standard required amount. There's a kibetza. My love Rameir. The Gemara is assuming that this is following Shitas Rameir. Apparently, kazayas is not enough. No, it's not Rameir. It's like Rabbanan. It's Rabbanan. It's Rabbanan. We hold that we have to stick to the rules. We don't make exceptions. And it's treated like any other food that's tamei, which needs a kibetza. Says the Gemara, really? It's Rabbanan Vaktani Reisha. Let's go back to the beginning of the Mishnah. Tzricha machshava ben tzricha hechsher. You need to, determine that it's going to be eaten. That renders it food, but you don't have to rinse it. You don't have to prepare it for its tumah. Which means to say we're bucking the rules. That sounds like Rameir speaking. Uman shamas li hai svara. Who seems to hold of this svara, this opinion that things that have potential for severe tumah don't have to follow the standard system. They don't need hechsher. Who's that? That's Rameir. Just like by the live animal, he said it's metame, right? Umadereisha Rameir, Seifenam Rameir. The fact that the first part of the Mishnah seems to be Rameir, let's assume the second part is Rameir too, not the Rabban. That's a kash. Mid the area, you can't prove anything. This part is like Rameir. This part is like the Rabban. But Miktani Seifa, what do you mean? Let's move on to the next part of the Mishnah. Shchitasa milikasa metaheres treifasa metumasa. Say we shift to a slightly different topic. We had discussed this a while ago. Let's say you have a bird that was shechted, or there was a milika done in the Beis Hamikdash. Then, lo and behold, it was discovered to be a treifa. A treifa is not really edible. But aside from being inedible, it's really going to be tummy now, because it's like any other dead bird. The answer is no. According to Reb Meir's opinion, if the bird experienced a halachically valid shchita or malika, that spares it of any tumah. Although you can't eat it, but it's not tummy. Because the life termination occurred through a halachically valid process. That's Reb Meir's opinion. Man shamas lehai svar. Who's the one that adopts this approach? That's Reb Meir. Okay, now this is in this Mishnah here, where we say one part is Reb Meir, then it's Rabbanan, now it's back to Reb Meir. Reish of a Sefer, the first and last segments of this Mishnah is Reb Meir speaking. Umitziyas Rabbanan, and the midpoint is Rabbanan. It's a little bit unlikely. Look, if we're left with no choice, we'll say that in fact Reish of a Sefer Reb Meir, Umitziyas Rabbanan. To answer this question about the Kazayas Kabetza issue, we're compelled to conclude that in fact the first and last parts of the Mishnah is Rameir, the middle is Rabbanan. But according to Rameir, it can very well be that a nevela of an iftar is metame with merely a kazayas, which corresponds to the same shear that eventually is going to be metame to machamura. Although it's an unconventional, non-typical, shear in accordance with Rameir. Just like the live Sarah Mishtaleach is metame oichlin amashke. Amali Rav Amnun Rav Zera says Rav Amnun to Rav Zera, I have an interesting question for you, and I insist that you answer me before you sit down. Don't sit down. Akarach on your feet. Don't sit down. Until you resolve the following question. Please tell me. Nivlas oiftar l'Rameir. So according to Rameir, the kazayas, even a kazayas of a nivlas iftar is already has the ability to metame food, right? Because of the potential for tumah on that same kazayas, so it already now will generate tumah upon contact, transmit tumah to another food. So technically, he should be considered like an av hatumah, like a source of tumah, in which case, when he touches food, it becomes a rishon, the next level, which now in turn can transmit to another food, which is a sheni. Shall we say that it has that ability to transmit all the way out there? Or perhaps it's sufficient. Suffice to say that he can be matama the first, but it stops there. Nivlas iftar l'Rameir. Moinin l'rishon v'sheni. Do we count, the standard count? It goes to the next item, which is a rishon, to the next item, which is a sheni. Ein moinin rishon v'sheni. Perhaps we don't apply this concept of rishon v'sheni. The fact is, this nivlas iftar cannot be matame a person at this point. It doesn't have that severe tumah to it. Because of the potential for severe tumah, eventually it already has some tumah activated on it. It can be matame food. But perhaps it's a weaker tumah. Since it's limited to food, it's a one-stop tumah. It just goes one level and that's it. It can't continue. Moinin lo rishon v'sheni? Ein moinin rishon v'sheni. Amar Leis, he says, the answer is no. Because only kalecha de matame adam b'maga, only a tumah source that can transmit tumah to a person by way of contact. Then we say, okay, it can generate, offspring, moinin b'rishon v'sheni. It could generate the whole chain of av to rishon to sheni. Kalecha de ein matame adam b'maga. But in this case, where at this early stage, it doesn't have tumah chamura. Right? In fact, if a person touches the nevela of the oif tahar, it's not going to metame a person, right? So it doesn't have that ability. So even though it's a very severe type of tumah generator, but at most it's metame the first item that it touches and it stops. It stops dead in its tracks. Kalecha de ein metame adam b'maga ein moyin b'rishon v'sheni. Here comes another similar question. He asked me Rabbi Ami Barchi. Some say Rabbi Abin Bar Kahana. Hadasnan. We have a Mishnah, interesting Mishnah. Typically, only a kazayas of a nevela is metame, right? A dead animal. Okay, we're shifting to a standard nevela. A kazayas is metame upon contact. What if you have a half kazayas next to another half, and it's sort of connected by way of water? There's water perched in between, which sort of connects the two halves. Chibure hadasnan. We learned in the Mishnah. Chibure oichlin, connecting foods, connecting the nevelos. Aydemashkin by way of liquid. Chibur l'tumah kala. Ve'ent chibur l'tumah chamura. For some reason, which Rashi says he doesn't know why. Lo yadana, he says the reason for this. But in any case, that's the halacha. It makes a connection regarding lighter tumahs. Basically, it grants the two halves the status of a whole. It makes that connection, a conductor makes that connection, and now they can be matame to makal. If they touch food, they're matame. But it does not have the ability to transmit severe tumah to a person. Because they don't have a full kazayas in one spot. Okay. So I have a similar question here. Something which currently is matami only to makala, but not to machamura. What happens when it touches food? How severely tumah does it make it? Can that tumah now be transmitted further to make a rishon and a sheni? Or do we say no? It stops right there. It's a one-stop shop. Moine by rishon v'sheni? Oh yeah, moine by rishon v'sheni. Amalei says the answer is no. In line with our previous rule, kalecha de metame adam, an item that has the ability to metame a person, that's indicative of its strength. It's an ongoing thing that can just carry on and on. Moine by rishon v'sheni, it makes a rishon, which in turn can make a sheni. However, in this case, with these two separated halves, ein metame adam, then ein moine rishon v'sheni, it doesn't make a rishon sheni either. Okay, so bottom line is that those who handle the para manisrafim, para aduma, sora mishtaleach, they become tamei and they're begadim as well. But in terms of a food item that directly touches that par, it becomes tamei too. Right? Because although that item doesn't have hechsher, it doesn't have the standard, preparation for tumah, but it's a self-generator of tumah. It's metama tumah chamura. So it doesn't need to be prepared. It can generate tumah upon touching food. Rameh takes it a step further. He says even alive, sora mishtaleach, or in the case of nivlas iftar, which is another example of something which has tumah chamura, even if it's just a kazayis, which is smaller than the standard requirement, can also be metame echlan mashkim. But as the Gemara concludes, it's a one-time opportunity. It doesn't carry on to the next item. Yotzu elu ve'elu. Mishnah says, although the parim and israfim meant to be carried all the way out, we call it chutz l'shalish machnes. We use that term because in the Midbar they had machnes, encampments, right? So the Mishkan actually was called a machna shchina, ringed around by the Leviim, which are called machna levia. Then you have the outer ring, which is the general encampment of Klal Yisrael, called the machna Yisrael, and they had to burn it all the way outside, all three. So in the Beis HaMikdash, we have the Beis HaMikdash, we have the Harabayis, we have the Yerushalayim, 1, 2, 3, and it was carried all the way out. However, in terms of Tumas Begadim, the carriers, they become Tumah as soon as it leaves the Beis HaMikdash, as soon as it leaves the Azara. How do we know that's true? How do we know that Tumah arrives so early in the process? As soon as they leave the premises, they become Tummy. How do we know they become Tummy so early? So in Rabbanan we have a brayso, which will give us the precise locations for burning the various karbanos, and we'll see exactly when the tumah happens. Tana Rabbanan, we have a pasuk regarding the par of Yom Kippur, which is one of those that are burnt outside lahalam. So elsewhere, by the par of the Kohen Mashiach, the par helam davashal tzibur, which is a carbon that the tzibur will bring if they sinned, if they erred, or the Kohen Gadol will bring. So over there it says, you burn it outside Yerushalayim. Kan, but over here by Yom Kippur, the machna achas. It just says take it out out of one machna. How could you say that? We learned that actually they're meant to be the same locations. So what then does the pasuk mean when it relates to a single machna? Loimlach to tell you, sure, you burn it all the way outside, but the tumas begadim gets applied right now. Kivan sheyatza, loimlach kivan sheyatza. Chus la machna achas m'tam begadim. As soon as you take it out one machna, as soon as you take it out of the azari begadim atam. Okay. Now the premise was that the sreifa actually takes place outside all three. How do we know that? If you go for minol, how do we know that it's outside all three? The Tanur Rabban, we have a brayso. This is by the par Kohen Mashiach. Take it out. It means chutz l'shalish machna. It's outside all three. You're suggesting outside all three. Chutz l'shalish machna. Maybe it means outside just one machna. That's what it says, right? But when the pasuk says by the other carbon, para'eda, it says take it out and burn it mechus lamachna, which is really a redundancy. It's unnecessary because we already know that the par helam davashal tzibur is meant to be burned at the same location as the par kohen Mashiach, which is presumably outside one machna. Shekar Neman already says burn it in the same place kasher sarafas parish where you burnt the first one by the par kohen Mashiach. So leave out the description. It's the same location. Oh, the reason for repeating the word machna again was to tell you, take it out another machna. Take it out two machnas. How do we know all three? Now we move on to the next, the pasuk there which says, "Koslamachne b'deshen." This is by the deshen. Kohen is meant to take some ashes and the ashes of whatever's left on the mizbeach, take it out. Mechutz lamachne, take it out of the area, which again is a redundancy because we know that deshen is meant to be taken out mechutz lamachne because by the parkay Mashiach it says burn it outside the machne al shefach hadeshen, where you land the ashes. Apparently you land the ashes outside the machne, right? Sort of a reverse source, right? When the pasuk describes the deshen as being taken mechutz lamachne, shetzor chleimar, which is unnecessary. Shekar Nemer already says by the burning of the parkay Mashiach, which we know is mechutz lamachne. It says do it where the deshen is. Apparently it's one in the same place. Al shevach deshen yisaref, where you pour the deshen. So why the extra lashon mechutz lamachne? Litin lemachne shlishis, to add yet another machne. So now you know the delivery of the deshen and the burning of all these parim are way outside the city. But in terms of tumas bekadim, that occurs immediately as soon as you leave one machne. With Reb Shimon. Now in the Mishnah we had Reb Shimon's shita. Tumas bekadim only occurs while burning, not as soon as you leave the area. Hi, mechutz lamachne mayavli. What does he do with the chachamim source? Mechutz lamachne, which sounds like it happens now. It's needed for totally different halach. Because the Brisa says like this. Nemar kan we have by these parim the lashon of chutz lamachne. We have elsewhere by the parah duma chutz lamachne. We connect. Ma kan chutz shalosh machne. Just like over here by the parim and esrafim, they're outside all three. Afalahal by paraduma as well, you burn it beyond all three machnes, and we also make a reverse connection. Umahal, just like by the paraduma, it's processed to the east of Yerushalayim. That's where you do the spreading of the blood. Mizrach Yerushalayim, because the pasuk says you do it on that side. Afkan likewise. Where do we burn the par and sar of Yom Kippur? The Mizrach Yerushalayim, although we know it's beyond all three machnes outside Yerushalayim, but to which direction? To the east of Yerushalayim. That's where the burning area was. Okay, so according to Reb Shimon, we have the words mechutz lamachne to connect it to the paraduma to provide precise location to the east. El Rabbanan says the Gemara, but according to Rabbanan, who evidently don't have this derech because they use the mechutz lamachne for something else. So where do we burn these cows? Because Sanya, Brisa says, Hechen Esrafim, where is it burned? Litzfon Yerushalayim, chutz l'shalosh machnes. Actually, it was to the north of Yerushalayim, beyond the city. And why Dafka to the north? Rashi says, Shekol masachatas b'tzafim. We know that the shchita of a chatas is on the tzafan of the Azara. So chatas relates to tzafan. Presumably you burn it on the north of Yerushalayim as well. Interestingly, we talk about the place of Shefach Hadesh, and I once read an article, fascinating piece, that years ago, about 100 or so years ago, to the north of the old city there was a pile of ashes, a huge mound of ashes, which was known amongst the locals of the Yidden, who it was known by tradition as a place called Shefach Hadesh. That's where the ashes of the karbanos throughout hundreds and hundreds of years of the Beis Hamikdash's activity, that's where the ashes were delivered. And actually it corresponds to the opinion of the Rabbanim because it was to the north of Yerushalayim, right outside the old city where the Mandelbaum gate is over there. That's where the Shefach Hadesh was. And I read that it was known. It was a huge mound. Everybody knew this was from the Beis Hamikdash. This was the remnant of the karbanos. And it was there for hundreds and hundreds of years. Until I think at the turn of the century, they made some sort of the Goyim had some sort of soap factory, and they would snatch from that material and they would use it for their soap manufacturing, and it slowly decreased and shrunk, and then it lost its whole it totally was depleted. In fact, I read a very fascinating piece that that there was a Rav, I forget which, a Rebbe in Europe, when he heard about the Shefach Hadesh, and he asked that they send him. Somebody went in there and found a piece of a horn. Presumably from a carbon of Beis Hamikdash. Can you imagine 1,000 years old? Imagine how inspiring it is to touch a piece of a carbon of Beis Hamikdash. It's mutar b'arnot, you can, because it's already burnt, it's ashes, it's. And they sent it to this Rebbe in Europe, and he was so moved and just touched by actually experiencing and handling material that came from the Heilige Beis Hamikdash. Shibona Beis Hamikdash Merabi Amen. So in that case, the location, it struck me, the location corresponds to the Shitas Rabbanon, who say that the Shevach HaDeshen, it would deposit the ashes to the north of the area which was slightly to the north of Yerushalayim. Okay. Rabbi Yitzchak Lili Omer, there's another aspect regarding the location of the burning of these karbonis. Abeis Hadeshen Nisrafim. He says you have to burn it. It's not a question just of location. You have to burn on ashes. The pasuk says Al Shevach HaDeshen, it has to be sitting on ashes. So you have to make sure there was some ashes sitting there before you burn these karbonis. Now that's his opinion, but apparently the Tanakama, the first sheet in the Brisa, doesn't require this condition to be met. Amar Rava Mantana. So let's put a name to the face. Who's the opinion? What's the name of the shita? The Palagalei Shegli, who disagrees and does not require ashes to be present while burning these karbonis? Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov. It's his shita, the Sanya, because according to him, the word Al Shevach HaDeshen Yisaref is teaching something else. The Sanya, the bright Tanakama says Al Shevach HaDeshen Yisaref means there's got to be some ashes there. Sheish Hem Deshen. Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov Omer, no. Sheim Yokayim Meshuvach. Shefach means it's sort of an incline that you can, pour it there and it rolls down. So that's all. It's a matter of incline. It's not a matter of having the deshen present there. So that's the opposing shita. Abaye, who says he disagrees? Maybe he agrees. He just requires two conditions. Perhaps he agrees to the first premise that it has to be deshen there for it to be considered a mokem shefach hadeshen. But he also holds it has to be done on a slant in order to be considered a pour. And that's the additional requirement, but perhaps the presence of deshen is required according to all shittas. Okay, let's just see one more piece and finish the pair. Tanur Rabbanan. So we speak about those involved in transporting and burning the parim, whose clothing become tamei. Tanur Rabbanan v'asoyref. Okay, one walks over to the burning, to the fire, and gets involved there. His begadim become tamei. Asoyref metame begadim. So only one who's involved in the actual streifa. One who just simply lights the fire. And certainly not the fellow who just merely arranged the firewood. He's not going to be Matame Begadim because he's not actually assisting in the actual burning process. Who's the Soyref that in fact affects his Begadim? Who's actively involved while it's being burnt. The burning process which consumes most of the par, and that's considered active involvement which affects his begadim. Now until what point? Suppose he walked in there and started getting involved after everything turned to ashes. Perhaps they were also matame begadim. No, they're not matame begadim. Only oisam who burns them. Oisam when they're still intact is what to burn. Those people are matame begadim, as opposed to our fellow, once they turn to ashes, it's over. Shimon Omer has a slightly different version. While they're intact, once the flesh becomes sort of dissolved, then the action is over. There's no too much begadim going forward. Maybe now, what's the difference between the Tanakam who spoke about turning into ashes and Rav Shimon spoke about dissolving? The difference will be the Shavi Charucha. Suppose the fire had already fully charred the basar, but not yet afer. So according to Tanakama, there's still what to do. It's not yet fully incinerated. And if one approaches the fire now and gets involved, he's become tummy. According to Reb Shimon, it's called already nitach habasar. It's already shows over, and it can no longer affect those who are now going to choose to be involved. Hadron Lachtful. Okay, so he spoke about the Tumas Begadim that applies to those that are involved in handling these karbonis, the Parah Manisrafim, Sidon Manisrafim, the Parah Aduma, the Sarah Mishtaleach. According to Tanakam, as soon as they leave the area, according to Shimon, only the tumah only happens when the animal becomes mostly consumed. That's when their Begadim become Tameh. We spoke about an interesting thing that although these aren't necessarily dead, they're shechted, but they still have the ability to be matame, a plain, basic, simple tumah as well. So if food touches these things, they become tameh. Not if a person touches them, just food, tumah kala. because these things are soifer l'tama tuma chamor. They're generators of severe tuma eventually, right, for the people that are involved in them. So they have that sort of tuma generating capacity with respect to other things as well. If they touch food or drink, they become tameh. According to Rameh, we take it even a step further. But they don't have to abide by the conventional rules and regulations. Even a live Sarah Mishtaleach, or even a Nivlas Iftar, size of a Kazayas, has that ability as well. We actually did say that it's limited to the extent that it's going to be sort of a one-time thing. It's not going to carry on to Shrisha and Visheni, as usually happens. And we learned about the exact location where to burn these karbanos, according to... So it's totally beyond the three machnes, that's a given. According to Rabbi Shimon, it was... according to Rabbi Lezer, it was L'Mizracha. Shel Yerushalayim, according to Rabbanan, it was L'Tzfayna. Shel Yerushalayim, Shibona, Beit HaMikdash, Meir B'Meinu. Amen. All the best, dear Natzlach.